Holly's from Griffith University with over 25 years of pedagogical research experience. She has been published in highly regarded journals and received recognition for her teaching excellence. She actively shares her experiences and research globally, contributing to the advancement of learning, teaching and assessment practices in higher education. So please welcome Poppy.
That's a little curtsy. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Maori people. So thank you for having me. I hope, yeah, is that better? Yeah. We need to have that for recording purposes, I'm told. So has any of you played with the notion of potentially considering or contemplating of putting an interactive oral for any of your classes or read about interactive orals? Okay, so to some of you might be something very new, but from my conversations with some of you in the room today, you came in well read and well aware of what interactive oral assessments are. So without further ado, I just I have a lot of slides and a lot of examples, but I'm just going to try and be more, thank you, just going to try and stick to the key slides, and then we can always come back if time allows to examples and discussions, depending on where your questions may resonate within the type of assessment that we were going to talk about. But I want to set the scene a little bit and give you the context of the importance of interactive orals in current pressures within, in particular, higher education, where interactive orals have been implemented and used over the past 10 years. Now, the context is in alignment with Texas AI-driven assessment reforms, and they emphasize the need for assessments that are authentic, they are inclusive, and they are resilient, importantly, resilient to artificial intelligence-related challenges. And interactive oral assessments are characterized by real-time, unscripted dialogue, conversation between assessors and students, or students and students. And that inherently resists that artificial intelligence-generated content misuse that a lot of students we see fall into this trap, of course, and they promote that genuine student engagement. So another context-related aspect that relates to the importance of using these authentic assessments is, oops, sorry, I think I skipped, yeah. It's that employability and developing those skills. We had the keynote speaker this morning that stressed the importance of jobs and skills of the future, and the interactive oral assessments simulate authentic workplace scenarios and ultimately develop those critical skills that relate to the needs of the future jobs and skills. Not only in Australia, of course, interactive orals are now pretty much a global phenomenon, so they seem to be appreciated internationally and globally for the benefits that they offer to students. So institutions, by embedding interactive orals in their curriculum, can offer that, can bridge that gap between academic learning and industry expectations. This is the gap that a couple of the speakers in this conference have presented Nicole, just a minute ago, she finished her presentation about the capabilities framework, and she was stressing the gap between, especially after COVID, how teaching reverted back to what it was pre-COVID, where industry continued to roll with what happens during COVID. So, and another contextual, I suppose, part that we need to be aware to stress the importance of having those interactive orals in place is the artificial intelligence. So, the National AI Centre initiatives highlight the potential for AI to augment educational practices, and we are coming into terms that AI is not a threat to us. We can use AI to enhance our teaching, our assessment, and students, also use AI. It's unavoidable. There's no going back. So while AI can streamline our tasks, interactive orals ensure that the assessment of student understanding remains human-centric. And we've done a lot of research that showcases that interactive orals, initially when we first started them 10 years ago, it was just, how about we try this? And are we even allowed to do this as an assessment? Let's check. Oh, we can do it, but we have to change the policy. All right, let's just change the policy. So it was a bit of experimenting. No one anticipated that we're going to have a pandemic. Nobody anticipated that we're going to have Gen AI. And interactive orals, at the end of the day, they seem to be ticking all the boxes, and they seem to be resilient. Throw them a pandemic, not a worry. Throw them Gen AI, no problem. So it's been quite an interesting journey over the past 10 years. Let's see what else life will throw at us, and whether interactive orals can handle it. Now, that's the context, and it seems that, regardless of the context, interactive orals seem to be responding to the higher education needs and stresses and adjustments that we need to address. But what exactly are interactive orals, especially for those of you that never heard of them? And thanks for coming, out of curiosity, I suppose. So I'd like to work on give you a working definition, some examples, the characteristics of interactive oral assessments and how they are different to viva voces or oral presentations and other types of assessment that have the oral component embedded in them. So a few years ago, when we had the first lot of concrete data from different sets of collection points from different courses and different students, we published a paper in the Studies of Higher Education where we offered a solidified definition of an interactive oral assessment that stood, the definition stood the pressures of time, and regardless of how much work we've done since, that definition still stands accurate. And it's about a form of authentic assessment that promotes skill development and employability, enhances overall student engagement, and offers a personalized approach to learning and teaching that preserves academic integrity. That was a big, bold statement back then, when we didn't know much about Gen AI. We didn't know anything about the pandemic. And over the years, and I'm stressing some keywords there in red because I've got some interesting research that illustrates and a model that we use for designing interactive oral assessments that brings that definition to life. And we look at different examples on Texas website using interactive orals where you can embed it. We can embed them in pretty much any discipline. They've got a couple of examples in the website on a physiotherapy degree that map out all their assessments, and they have interactive orals embedded. They also give an example of a Bachelor of Arts that is a program-based interactive oral, And then, of course, over the years, we published a lot of examples of interactive oral assessments to showcase their versatility. One of the examples that we published, actually Rawan is presenting at the same time, I think, next door to me. She's from Griffith University. Be fun if she was here. But we recently published a chapter in case studies on blended learning in higher education. And we offer examples that show the scalability of interactive oral assessments. We're now implementing interactive orals with various universities that have 1,000 students or more. And there's ways to address that, large cohorts. So we started with scaffolding, which is important. So this particular example showcases how you scaffold interactive orals throughout the program, throughout the degree, or within a course itself. So scaffolding is one of the key principles to allow students to develop those skills and to showcase through the interactive oral their capabilities and all the rest of it. We have another example, very interesting example, that's in Dublin City University, where Paul works with his students as partners to develop an interactive oral. And because every cohort, every offering, every trimester is different, the interactive oral is shaped by that cohort, for that cohort, and it changes. So it's a very, very interesting case study. Another example is of integrating interactive oral assessment vertically and horizontally across the degree. So we can see, I'm not going to go through, I can give you the link if you like to that chapter. It's available online. But all I'm trying to show you is answer potential queries or questions whether, can I use interactive oral at scale? Can I use interactive oral in this context? Can I use interactive oral in another context? And interactive orals can be used in pretty much any discipline, any year, any cohort of any size, across first, second, third year, and so forth. So you could have an interactive oral as the formative initial assessment that is worth 10% first year students first trimester, or you can have an interactive oral at the end of the degree, at the ultimate point where they need to showcase their knowledge and so forth. So they're pretty adjusted and flexible. Now, there's really good examples on using interactive orals I really like this example. One of our colleagues at Griffith University a few years ago, she scaffolded an interactive oral assessment at the end of the course. And it was a shareholder meeting. It was the annual shareholder meeting. Her course was hotel management. And students went into little groups. And within each group, they had to manage a hotel. And each group had, the students would take on different roles. So one person would be the inventory manager, the other person would be the customer satisfaction and so forth, or the bookings and all the rest of it. And every week, the course convener would give them different data. So your inventory is missing XYZ, or your bookings for next week have dropped, or they have increased because there's a conference and all of a sudden we're fully booked. So every week, the students had to deal with different data, and they had to make decisions. And pretend each week is 1 month, right? So at the end of the trimester, at the end of the 12 weeks, they will have the interactive oral with the shareholders, where they will have a meeting and they will have to justify the decisions that they made over the past 12 months, right? Yeah. Fascinating, fantastic simulation of real life situations where students have to address a particular environment that they would have to do in real life. Then there's more examples. As I said, I could keep going. This one was in economics, and it was a big winner for us because some disciplines were more open to innovative assessment or trying interactive orals than others. And economists, they tend to potentially be a little bit more, they didn't perceive that interactive orals were fitting for economics. And it's interesting because Professor Fabrizio was our Dean Academic at the time. And he one day came to us, myself and Danny, that we started working on interactive orals together. And he came to us and said, I want an interactive oral for my course too. And I actually want it across all the courses and all the years in the degree. And we were like, okay, let's do it. And it was a big win because if the Dean of Academic, who is an economist, sees value in having interactive orals integrated across the degree, hurrah, we've got a big win here. So it was a fantastic outcome, and the same thing happened with other courses, then in finance. But I will give you this tiny URL, but it's anything but tiny. There's pretty much any discipline you can think of in this URL, where some of the examples that are given there are actual interactive oral assessments, and others are scenarios where, depending on the discipline that you're working on, you can use as an example. But it's a big sort of space where we pretty much cover any discipline you can think on. And if you find a discipline that we missed out on, please reach out and tell us, and we can add it to our interactive oral design URL. Now, I think I gave enough examples to sort of create a little bit of sense of what interactive orals are and what they look like. But I want to talk a little bit more specifically about their characteristics, and then move on with how interactive oral assessments are different to other oral assessments. So the main difference, one of the main differences between interactive oral assessments and other oral assessments is that we use conversational prompts when we design them. These are starting points that encourage a response or dialogue open statements. So imagine you are teaching event and facility management. Imagine you have a group of students, and their assessment is to organize this conference, right? And then you have a conversation with them, you have an interactive oral with them, and you just say, okay, describe a time when an event failed to deliver a good experience to participants. That's a question. And that all of a sudden puts you on the spot, and you go, oh, okay, what do I know about that? Reverse that question to a prompt. And so, you're having that conversation with a student or with a group of students, saying, oh, I wonder if it will be possible to enhance the experience of the participants during the event and offer opportunities for them to mingle during the sessions or after the sessions, and whether that would be possible. So the student all of a sudden says, yes, of course, there's plenty of opportunities to do X, Y, Z. So you sort of automatically position them in a more sort of positive frame of mind, and it's not like you're asking them a question. It's like you inquire something, you're putting out a prompt to that particular student or students. Another thing that's really important is that replicating that authentic setting. And I do reverse engineering on that when I design interactive orals, and I'll take you through my logic of thinking how do I know where to fit in an interactive oral within my degree or within my course, and how do I know what to do with that interactive oral, what questions to have, what skills to assess and so forth. Obviously, we're talking about genuine and unscripted conversation, which simulates normal communication cues, and offering that scaffolded support for students to be able to deliver that interactive oral. And when I talk about scaffolding, it's not necessarily scaffolding from assignment 1 to assignment 2 to the interactive oral. Scaffolding can be offered through resources as well. So it's not necessarily assessment-related scaffolding, but it's also resource-related scaffolding. And of course, engage students throughout the course. I literally discuss the interactive oral. If I have an interactive oral in the course, I present that to the students first week, even if it's the last thing that they will do in their assessment or in the course. And I get them excited about it. And the way I discuss that is, let's say you have my area of, oh yeah. Sorry, I'm moving away sometimes from my slides, but I need to stick here or here. My area of expertise is sport management. So I teach a lot of courses like sports sponsorship, sports events, sport management, and along those lines, right? And one of the courses that I teach is athlete management. So it's, the managers that represent players or athletes and go out and they protect their rights, and they get endorsements through different sponsors and so forth. So when I walk in class and introduce myself and we have a chat with students about this course and this will be the assessment, I said to them, okay, if you are an athlete manager or a player manager, same thing, what do you think you'll be doing in real life as a job? Oh, well, we're going to have to get endorsements for our athletes. That's, very important. So, okay, fantastic. Let's do that as an assessment. That's going to be your interactive oral. So you are going, this is not mine. So what we're going to do is we're going to build your legal capacity, understanding framework. We're going to build your management skills, your marketing skills, your pitching skills, your reaching out to industry skills, and then as scaffolding, right? And then your assessment will be that you and your athlete work in pairs, will be the player manager and the athlete. You're representing your athlete, and I will be, or your assessor will be the sponsor, the potential sponsor. So you are going to have that conversation with a potential sponsor on potentially organising endorsements from your athlete. And they're like, yeah, that's fantastic. That's what we want to know. That's what we want. That's what we're going to be doing in real life. And if you sell it from the get-go, they look forward to it. They have a name. They just want this to happen. So that engagement is really important. Was there a question? Yeah, go for it.
So sorry to trouble you.
That's all right.
This is very interesting. So I do understand about the designing part of the assessment. But in our university, so we have the requirement of having a marking rubric. So how does the marking rubric look like for some kind of...
Okay, the question is about the rubric. This is so critical to have a rubric that does not assess language and syntax, and especially for international students, for equity purposes, it's about a rubric that assesses knowledge and the depth of that knowledge. And I will get to the part of designing a rubric that is really well honed and really touching into how do you assess that skill development through the interactive. So I will speak about those rubrics a little bit later on, and let me know if you still have that question. Yeah.
Sort of piggybacking on that, but like in our Akara rubrics, I know you talk about it later, but I think in the younger years we can do presentations as those like oral component. But as we go into like years 10, 11, 12, it's less of you don't assess them on oral. You could collect it as evidence. So I was just wondering, with the audience, with the age of students from years 7 to 12, from your experience, which is the most effective age group for this technique?
A disclaimer, we haven't implemented interactive orals in high schools or junior school, but we've implemented them across every spectrum of higher education. And what we have found, it really depends on it doesn't depend on age. It depends on what you're trying to achieve with the interactive oral. So it could be a 5% within a 30% larger assessment, or it could be a 35% larger assessment. And importantly, if it's at the beginning of the trimester, it's more important. It's important that it's of lesser percentage, and it assesses different skills like formative skills or knowledge. Whereas if it's towards the end, where the where the knowledge has accumulated and so forth, then it all comes down to how you design the rubric as well, what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to see what students have learned. Yeah. So it really depends, but there's no age specific. It's about what you're trying to achieve. Yeah. So this is some of the data that we found a few years ago, and it still pertains. So it talks about authenticity. It talks about scaffolding. What was interesting was the uniqueness and personalized approach. The engagement component and specificity. I'd like to stress that because back then we called it specificity. If that study was today, I would call it Gen AI resilience, right? Because that's what specificity is about. The specific information that the students needed were not available to be purchased, and they had to research on their own. And that personalized approach, they invested themselves in that interactive oral. I'll give you an example of the first interactive role that we put together. It was in sport management, and the head of department, one of my colleagues left Griffith, and the head of department called me and said, look, you've got experience with course design. This is a sport management course. Take it, fix it. We've got low engagement, low set and seg. We don't know what's going on. Just do whatever needs to be done. And I said, okay, do I have the all clear to do whatever I want? Because the assessments need complete rehaul. There was a midterm multiple choice exam. Then there was a 3,500 word assignment, essay. And then end of trimester, there was another multiple choice exam. I said, I can't work with that. That's got zero pedagogical value to me. So, yeah, do whatever you want. So I put together a little proposal. The first assessment was a very formative assessment, very descriptive, short. The students had, that was a sport management course, Introduction to Sport Management. So the students had to go to a sports organization of their choice. It could be the soccer club that they played soccer when they were 10. All the students had an affiliation with a sport organization. So they would go to their preferred sports organization, and they would speak to staff, and they would just describe, they would write a 1,000 descriptive piece on, this is my organization that I'm looking at, this is how many people work there, this is how many volunteers, this is what programs they offer, and so forth and so forth. The second assignment was more engaging in the sense that it was towards the end of the trimester when we spoke about sports marketing and sport development programs and sports governance and sport policy and. So at the end of the trimester, they had to go back to the organization and respond to some of the challenges that the organization had in relation to some of the topics that we covered throughout the trimester. So they may have had problems with young girls dropping out of the soccer club by the age of 10. How do we bring them back? Or the governance of the soccer club was not represented by females, I don't know. Or there was an incident where during a soccer game, a dog beat or grabbed one of the kids' legs, and there was litigation issues and parent complaints. So they would just literally immerse themselves into the particular organization issues. And then the third assessment that I was proposing was my first interactive oral, which was a job interview. And so the scenario was that the organization that they did the first and second assessment announced a job of a sport development officer or a sports marketing officer or general manager, whatever the case might be. And you have been selected for an interview, for a job interview. So 10 minutes, a well-designed rubric to assess what I wanted to get out of the assessment. And it was just absolutely phenomenal. The students absolutely loved it. What's interesting is that I sent that proposal to a learning and teaching consultant because we've never done job interviews as an assessment before. Remember, that's 10 years ago. And I wasn't sure, am I allowed to do that? So I sent the proposal to Danny Logan, who was our learning and teaching consultant then. And within a couple of minutes, I get a phone call. And it's Danny. And Danny goes, oh, hi, Poppy, I received your proposal. I say, oh, yeah, thank you. Thanks for calling. And said, he goes, who put these together? And I think, oh, what have I done? I'm not allowed to do job interviews. I said, oh, why? She goes, I just want to know who put this together. And I said, is it bad? She goes, no, this is genius. I said, it was me. It was all me. She goes, they behind the scenes, they had conversations within the Dean Learning and Teaching group and Deputy Dean and all the rest of it about how do we create authentic assessments, how do we address engagement, how do we address employability. And that really hit home with what was in need back then in the conversations within that particular need. So I want to continue. I think I'm enjoying this too much, and I know I need to be going a little bit faster. How do I go? Why can't I go there? There. So I just want to stress there's a lot of misconception of what interactive roles are and what not. And a lot of times we unfortunately see situations where people are citing their work as interactive roles when it's not. So interactive role is not an oral exam where you have that Q&A, high pressure environment or individual environment. Interactive roles are interactive, so it's not just one person that gets asked questions. They're not viva voce exams either, and the interactive roles have more informal conversational cues and all the rest of it, and they're not in-class poster presentations or group presentations that can be scripted or pre-recorded type of presentations and so forth. So, and on that note, I think I can jump in and talk a little bit more about the design of interactive orals for those who are interested in embarking on a journey on, okay, let's see how this looks like in real life if I want to put it together. The work that we've done in terms of the principles behind effective design for interactive orals pretty much apply to any authentic assessment. And if the end goal is to have that student engagement, employability, and academic integrity, then the scaffolding and support that I mentioned earlier, the scenario, you have to have a scenario where students can immerse themselves in that learning environment and really pretend and see that this is what I'll be doing as a job. So how would I behave in the real life if that was my job? Aligned to program, very important, of course, to make sure that where you have your interactive or really flows and aligns with the PLOs and other learning objectives and all the learning outcomes. And this is, I guess, where the good rubric is important. Accessible and equitable. When we had that first interactive or the job interview, we had to change a policy within Griffith because we never had that online assessment where we required for the student to show the student ID. And this way we can allow access for people or students who were overseas. And how lucky was that? Because with the pandemic, we already had that in place. It was all set up. And we saw a lot of exams transition to becoming interactive oral assessments during the pandemic. And professionally focused, again, that ties in with the scenario where the interactive oral needs to be something that the students will be doing in their careers following their graduation. Now, we do have a lot of steps in terms of how you go about designing those interactive orals, and I kind of spoke about a few of those steps. For me, I don't see one step first, then the other. It really varies how you go about those steps as long as you cover all those steps. We can come back to these design steps if you like, because I'm not sure how much time I've got left. There's no indication of time here. How much time have we got? Sorry, what? 3 minutes? No way. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to have to fly out. Okay. So I want to cover that backward design because this is really important. This is how I design interactive orals. So you start with the end. So you got what will students need to do in their job. Think about the courses you teach. When they finish your course, and I've got an example here, event and facility management, what will they be doing? What will be the tasks that they will be doing? Okay, great. Now we know what they need to be doing. Let's work backwards now and bring it to the work-based scenario. So I've got an example here for an authentic scenario that they might face in their role. And you explain that scenario, you convey that to them, and then you determine acceptable evidence. And this is how you design the rubric, right? This is the segue, right? So students will demonstrate their ability to communicate, justify, and adapt an event operations plan in this particular example. Then you explain that to students and to tutors and to markers and scaffold the task. So everyone needs to be receiving the same information about that assessment. Imagine having 1,000 students and 5 tutors. All the students and all the assessors need to be on the same page. All the resources need to be shared with everyone equally. And I can keep talking, but I only have, I think, 1 minute. And I want to address some of the concerns about language and cultural bias, performance anxiety, memorized responses, inconsistency across markers, and potential technological challenges. And I recently found myself quoting myself. So this is a quote. And I thought, this is me talking, so I can just quote myself. And so my advice is that interactive orals work best when designed thoughtfully, resourced equitably, and scaffolded intentionally and delivered with a mindset of listening and learning. So I don't have time to expand on this, and I wish I could, but maybe on take 2, maybe next year, part 2. But I do have all the resources that support a lot of the comments that I made and a lot of points that I made. And these are, the first one is an ebook that takes you throughout the whole journey with multiple resources and videos and links to what other universities have done around interactive orals, publications, guides, and so forth. The setup guide is the second, and then there's 2 guides, one for students and one for markers. They're very similar because remember consistency. And the last one is the Padlet that I gave you the link at the beginning. And so I think on that note, yes, that's the tiny URL that is anything by tiny. And okay, I just want to finish briefly by saying that interactive orals are not spreading by chance. They are thriving because educators, institutions, and students themselves are collaborating to prioritize skills that matter and critical thinking, that clarity, that empathy and adaptability that is most needed. So I'd like to thank you and leave that little promo thing for a Griffith Business School program that's coming up. Thank you.